let's just say, for example, that someone was to come up to you and say, hey, I may want to start doing this. I've been running games with my friends. They all tell me I'm amazing. They tell me that I'm the most amazing GM they've ever played with. What are the practical steps you would advise me to take to just kind of like get started? I don't even know where to get started. What would your answer be?
There's a quote, there's an Anthony Bourdain book called Kitchen Confidential. It's amazing if you haven't read it, but there's a little section he devotes to people that should not run restaurants. And one of the groups that he cites is the people whose friends have told them they throw great dinner parties. It's not maybe exactly one-to-one comparison, but it's a different creature than running your home games.
Everyone, welcome to another episode of GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm the GM Philosopher, and today we are joined by GM Tom, another one of these mythical paid GMs running professional games. And DM Tom is here to share some insights. We met on a live stream. As you know, I have been running my paid game journey since January 1st. We are now in the middle of March, toward the later half of March. I have learned so much, and I have so many questions for another paid GM. I do not often get to talk to other people who are doing this. So I'm excited to learn, and also I'm excited for the audience to learn. And the point of this channel is to empower game masters to run better games, and that includes paid games because I believe there's a huge future in this, and it is a positive future. So DM Tom, welcome to the chat, welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. Now, we would like to hear a little bit about you. If you would give an introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, I'd be delighted. So my name is Tom. I'm Canadian. I live in Montreal, and I have been playing TTRPGs, starting with D&D, 4th edition, for, I guess, about 17 years now. I got started when I was in university. Some friends and I, dove into 4th edition, which was the choice of my friend who was going to run the game for us. 5th edition was out at the time, but it was still pretty new, and I think he just had the 4th edition stuff lying around. We played a few little one-shots and things, and immediately my brain was like, how can I tell a story through this medium? And D&D has been with me through university and career changes, and I have been lucky enough to turn it into a career that began during the pandemic. At the time, I had been working in kitchens. I was a chef, and I had been in about 15 years at that point. Things took a rough turn during the pandemic, and I was eager to make a career change. And the opportunity kind of fell into my lap. At the time, there were I found a post on Reddit by a guy named David, who runs a company called Polyhedra. And I replied to that job posting, basically. And ever since, I've been working with Polyhedra. It's been over 4 years now.
Okay, very awesome. All right. So when you say working with Polyhedra, can you tell us a little bit about that? I've never actually heard of that.
Sure, yeah. So, it's not surprising. We are in some ways similar to platforms like Start Playing Games. That is to say, there's a matchmaking between game masters and players. The difference is that Polyhedra is a curated community, and it is very much oriented around long-term stability rather than, you kind of put up a post and hope that players respond. Instead, we use like a matchmaking system. We vet all the players who join into the community. And at first it started pretty small, 2020. I got in, I think about 18 months after the company, was officially founded. By that time, they already had a really solid core of game masters, but I was really lucky to find Polyhedra when I did. I guess it was fate. So it's I guess you could say it's like a private gaming community. Everybody is welcome to apply and to join. We really just have the rule of don't be a dick. So there's a few other caveats, but it's a paid game community.
Nice. Okay. Very cool. All right. Now, I want to ask you a few just baseline establishing questions. I hope this isn't too invasive, but I am very curious about this. Want to get down to some nuts and bolts stuff before we talk about tactics. First of all, would you mind telling us how old you are?
I will be 38 this year. So I'm
Nice.
37 now.
I'll be
Yeah.
the big 40 this year. So,
Congrats, man.
yeah,
Congrats.
yeah.
Looking good.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, that's the first thing. Number two, how many paid games are you currently running? If that's the right way
Four.
to ask that, right?
I have four ongoing campaigns: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Um, that number, excuse me, that number has grown steadily since I started. You know, when I first got into Polyhedra, I started with one campaign. Once I felt like I had my feet under me, I started adding more campaigns. And that's the great thing about Polyhedra, is that sometimes you put yourself out there and say, hey, I'm thinking of running this adventure module. Sometimes people come in as a partially or preformed group and are looking to find a game master. So I was lucky enough to get a few campaigns off the ground in short order. And I've been running four ever since. I've been kind of juggling my home games in there once in a while. You know, life gets in the way, and playing with friends and family becomes harder to organize, especially when there's like babies and weddings and things like that in the picture, and jobs. But four games, and I run also a lot of community one shots for Polyhedra on my either my nights off, or if I know I'm going to have a game canceled, I'll try and fill that time slot with one shots for the community, which I do free of charge. It's but there's opportunity there as well to sprinkle in a fifth campaign someday if I decide. I'm writing something right now.
Nice. Okay. Okay. When you say you're writing something, do you mean you're writing something for a fifth campaign?
Yeah, exactly. I'm writing a
Oh,
fifth campaign.
heck,
I'm writing an adventure. Or
okay.
I guess I should say I'm polishing one that I started writing long ago, but you want the presentation to be at a certain level before you offer it to people as a paid service.
Okay. Got you.
Yeah.
All right. Now, with that being said, what do you, and I hope this isn't too invasive. I have no issue talking about this. I talk about this at length on my channel. What does it cost a player to play in one of your games? Like, what's your rate?
That's a great question, and that has changed over time.
Mhm.
So when I first joined Polyhedra, we were charging $20 a session, which is on the higher end, I think, of kind of the going rate. Since then, so we're talking about 4 years now, that I'm almost 4 years that I'm with the company. The high end of the price has gone up. The low end has remained in place. And the way that Polyhedra is structured is that it's up to the game master to decide what they want to charge per session. Most of my games now, I charge 30 per session. I have one campaign where I had sort of done it almost by, like, I guess you could say, by invitation. And for that campaign, the players are paying 25. And there is an option with Polyhedra to do a monthly as opposed to a session by session payment plan, in which case there's a discounted price across the board, but that actually comes out of the company end, not the game master end. So that's quite nice.
Hello everyone, I'm the GM Philosopher. I hope you are enjoying this video. I really enjoyed making this one. Listen, I want to just let you know that if you are running games, if you're a game master and you want to increase emotional resonance in your games, you want to keep your players coming back for more, then I would highly recommend that you grab my premium ebook, The Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery, Deep Philosophy, Insights, and Tactics for the Experienced GM. This is my newest and best ebook yet. If you want to run games, it'll really keep your players coming back wanting more, build emotional resonance and glue that's going to keep your games together, keep your stories riveting, then my entire guide to that, you can find that in the description, is an ebook, 50 pages, 24 years of game mastering, running emotionally resonant games, packed into 50 pages. You're not going to miss it. Make sure you grab it while it's still available for a low introductory price. I really appreciate all of you. And every single ebook sale goes to support the channel, so I really appreciate that too. All right, everyone have a great day. Let's get back to the video. Okay, very nice.
So my standard session price is 30. I have one campaign that's 25.
Nice. Okay, very good. So now with that being said, you say you run 4 sessions a week. One thing I think that comes up a lot of people ask this question, is it actually sustainable to make GMing a career? Is it more of a side hustle thing? You know, is there actually opportunity out there for people to do it full time? How should people conceptualize that part of the journey from your perspective?
So I would preface my response by saying that, like I think everybody, especially these days, I do have a side hustle. I'm a personal trainer. I'm certified, and I've been doing it I made that career switch around the same time as I started getting into paid GMing. The personal training clientele has been a lot. It's been a much bigger challenge to try and grow the clientele to a sustainable place. So really only now that I'm about 5 years into that endeavor that I'm starting to see it as being an equal or an equivalent revenue stream to my GMing. So full disclosure, that's my side hustle.
Okay.
But for these past many years, I have been primarily focused on the game mastering, and the personal training has basically become like supplemental income. My wife and I were looking to buy a house, and we got to put something aside. As far as making game mastering a full-time or a main gig, I think it comes down to, for me, time management.
Okay.
Because, and I'm sure a lot of game masters can relate, right? Like the prep is never done. I can always think of even going back over adventures that I've already run, putting more polish on the maps, putting more polish on the token animations, putting more depth into the story. Something that I wish I had done on the first playthrough is going to make it into the second. So if you're like me and you can basically sink endless hours into the prep, and then there's the running the session, you may find it challenging to establish a balance. That's something that I struggled with early on. And I really wanted to present myself and my games as at the highest level. And at a certain point, there's the 80-20 rule, right? You're going to use about 20% of what you prep, really, and about 80% of it might never even see the light of day. So my advice to anybody who's getting started as a paid GM would be to run modules, run adventures, whether it's third party or official content. Because at least the work is done ahead of time and you can focus on details or really tailoring the campaign to fit the players. I think that's where your time is best spent, is to make it really feel like it's for them, for that group, for those players. So I spend more time prepping the campaigns that I've written myself, the homebrew stuff, versus the campaigns that have, lots of D&D adventures, have entire subreddits dedicated to ideas that people have had, maps that people have made, side encounters to supplement the adventure. And those are real gold mines of content. So for anybody that's looking to get into this, manage your time carefully, and remember that the more time you spend prepping, the more your hourly rate diminishes. So you need to kind of factor that in so you don't burn out, because it is a real thing. I've seen a few GMs in my day burn out, people that are trying to run 7 or 8 campaigns a week. You're running more than one session per day. That really takes a bite out of you on all fronts, mental, physical, whatever you like. Hope that answers the question.
Oh yeah, totally. No, absolutely. My next question is this: what size group do you typically run for? What is your ideal size? What do you think is a good idea, especially for like paid games? And then do you prefer running like virtually or for a physical table? And what do your games usually look like in that respect?
My optimal, when I think of a D&D group, it's 5 players and a game master. That was the size of my first group. That is just the size that my home games have tended to be. And it's nice because if you're missing a player or even 2, there's still enough of the group left over that you can run something, whether it's just continuing the adventure or maybe a cheeky little one shot to bridge the gap. But 5 is great for me. At Polyhedra, our tables cap at 6. The exception would be if a group of 7 people kind of pre-formed wanted all to play together. We could accommodate that, but 6 is the goal. It's the cap. My smallest table currently is 4 for guys that are a solid kind of core group. It's my Wednesday night table. Shout out to Miss Morn's Medicine. And these guys, when I opened up my Monday night game, the four of them just said we're going to play that, and we had two other guys join in as well. So I think there's a real friend group that's formed there out of those four. To sort of push it to the other end, 6 would be the upper limit. If we only have 3 players or fewer, we as a company policy postpone the session, especially if it's a player driven story. You don't want to have someone miss an important session, and you don't want, especially if that's the player's character is in the spotlight. You kind of have to adapt. As for so between 4 and 6, from switching to the format, as much as I love playing D&D in person, that's a right that is basically reserved for the friend groups, and all of my family is kind of scattered across Ontario and Quebec, and elsewhere. So digital is the way to go, and especially for playing with Polyhedra, almost all of my players are in the States, so it's the only way to make that happen. So we use Discord, and then we use Foundry as our virtual tabletop. So when I first got started with Polyhedra, I was really new to Foundry. I had purchased the license, but I was still using Roll20. And when I had to audition, I had to present like a 1 hour, one shot, show my proficiency with game mastering and the tech side of things. And so I had a bit of a crash course with Foundry, but now I consider myself something of a Foundry wizard. So that's the way that it goes. It's the virtual tabletop, and then as much sort of supplementary media as I can provide. I like to have Kenku for the soundtrack. For me, music or the audio element of a D&D game is really important as well. I would love to be able to incorporate other senses, right? As a former chef, the menus in my game are a little more detailed than they need to be. I would love, if I'm running a home game, get some smells involved and things like that. But we work with what we've got. So it's a VTT with some curated playlists and sound effects and things like that. Once in a while, I'll throw in a voice changer. If I'm going to play as a Titan or a Goliath barbarian or something like that, something beyond my register.
Nice.
A robot.
Heck yeah. No, that's awesome. Okay. So now so basically started with Polyhedra, got started in that environment. Have you ever run any games on Start Playing or not?
Haven't. No. The only other paid game master experiences that I've had were sort of like, I guess you could say, freelancing. I've done some adult birthday parties where or friend group reunions where people want to play with people they haven't seen in a long time. I've run some adventures like that, but to be honest with you, my dance card's been really full since I started with Polyhedra, and I keep the one free slot open for my home game.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that makes sense. Totally. How long do your sessions tend to run? Like, what is the ideal and what is realistically what happens?
So the minimum that is sort of when you sign up as a player, you're guaranteed minimum 3, and it says maximum 4. Now, I'll be honest, I've had plenty of sessions run longer than 4 hours. I try to avoid it because I find, when I get to step into the player's shoes, you tend to dissociate a little bit towards that 4-hour mark. And I want to give my players the best. I want the best out of them. But, if we're in the midst of an intense boss battle, or we're approaching the sort of the sensible conclusion of a narrative moment, I don't mind extending the session a little bit longer. And my players know they can always send me a private message like, hey, I've got a hard cap at whatever time, or I have to leave early, and that's fine. Players that miss my sessions get a detailed written recap by me that I'll then share with the other players. But 4 hours is usually my cutoff. 3 hours 45 I feel like is almost the sweet spot. 3.5 hours, but it really depends on the content of the session.
Yeah. No, totally. Okay, so now that we've got some of those nuts and bolts out of the way, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've faced, especially challenges faced by maybe new DMs especially GMs who've been running for friends and family, but they're thinking, hey, I might want to try to run a paid game. What could you warn them about? And then what solutions to those problems have you found?
The first thing that comes to mind is how quickly and how greatly you're going to increase or how wide of a net you're going to cast for players. When you're playing with friends and family, you know these people well. You tend to have a pretty firm grasp of what topics are going to be taboo at the table, and the things that people are looking to get out of the game. Some people just want to beat up a monster. Some people really want to get into the motives of a character. Some people want to just sit back and learn about the world. So you're going to encounter all different types of players, and it's not going to be immediately obvious when you're encountering a stranger and going to run games for them, just kind of what categories they fall into. For that reason, I would just say, without question, run a session 0. I don't charge session 0, but I have I have a sort of a checklist of subjects that I cover, and it's pretty standard too, right? Like you're covering all the same topics, things like, here's a list of my homebrew rules. Is there anything on there you really don't like? Some groups have opted out, some groups have opted in of specific rules. Every once in a while, someone will point to the sheet and be like, can I use this? And I'll say, hey, yeah, go for it. Maybe the first time it comes up in a year or two of playing, talking about lines and veils. A big diverse community is going to have people from all walks of life, and to have a session derailed because of an issue that could have been resolved or at least addressed and sort of made clear in session 0. I have never regretted running a session 0, and it's an opportunity for the game master and the players in a really almost risk-free environment to assess, are there red flags that I'm getting from other people at the table? Is there something that is really not going to work? And I've had some real curveballs thrown at me from everything from someone who was kind of shining in the player interview, but when we got down to actually playing, the chemistry just wasn't there, and that took a while to figure out. Really unexpected things that arise out of the interaction, not just between game master and player, but player and player. It's really hard to predict. So session 0 is important. Another pitfall that I touched on already is giving too much of yourself to the game, to running the session. If you've already carved out 4 hours of time in your evening that you're going to run the game, you need to ask yourself, how much time do I have to devote to the prep? And with that, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's 2 hours, maybe it's all day. There's a whole gamut that it can run. But what do you do with that time that you've carved out? So a lot of the time when I'm, if I'm in the subway or I'm walking somewhere, I'm kind of thinking about my session that night. What are the beats that are likely to be hit? There's actually in the D&D, I think it's in the Game Master 2024, the GM, the Game Master's Handbook. There's a really great guide on like how to prep if you have an hour, how you prep if you have 2 hours, if you have 3 hours. And for veteran game masters, that's maybe less useful than for a novice. But I'm always interested to hear how other game masters tackle these problems. And I mean, from the people at the top of the food chain, that's useful info. Mm-hmm. So making sure that you run a session 0 and all the over the table stuff that needs to be addressed, and then thinking about how much time you really do have to devote and what level of polish you'll be satisfied with when you're presenting your game. Yeah, those are two of the ones that took me a long time to kind of drill down and get, I don't want to say standardized, but to feel like I have a solid grasp to the point where I could maybe offer advice to somebody else on that matter.
Yeah, awesome. Now, having talked about kind of the common challenges and things like that, let's just say, for example, that someone was to come up to you and say, hey, I may want to start doing this. I've been running games with my friends. They all tell me I'm amazing. They tell me that I'm the most amazing GM they've ever played with. What are the practical steps you would advise me to take to just kind of like get started? I don't even know where to get started. What would your answer be?
There's a quote, there's an Anthony Bourdain book called Kitchen Confidential. It's amazing if you haven't read it, but there's a little section he devotes to people that should not run restaurants. And one of the groups that he cites is the people whose friends have told them they throw great dinner parties. It's not maybe exactly one-to-one comparison, but it's a different creature than running your home games. For somebody that wants to do it professionally, you need to treat it with a professional level of commitment and seriousness. So, having said that, someone who would be wanting to get into it with really no prior experience, I would say, to sort of use my own past as a guideline, acquire a VTT and purchase or acquire a module that you can run. Read the book, prep the maps, be ready to run the first chapter and understand what comes next. You will need players, obviously, to fill the seats at your paid game. So whether you want to run on Start Playing Games, or there are plenty of subreddits where people kind of do it, I guess you could say, like independently. There's Polyhedra, and there are your local game stores too. A lot of people overlook the fact that game stores, where they run, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments and stuff, often they'll have a night where they're hosting a D&D game. And many of the game masters who run those games are either paid or they're compensated with like store credit or something like that. So that might actually be a great and local way to expose yourself to the difference. And, when you're playing in a game store, you're going to get all sorts of different people coming in. You might even have to deal with that guy. And that is also a part of it. You have to be ready for conflict resolution. Sometimes I've had to have some tough talks with players, and that's an element of it that I think, kind of harkening back to one of your earlier questions, that people might not get exposure to when they're running for friends and family, is that you might have to sort out some awkward or uncomfortable situations. You are the arbiter of the game, after all. So get your tabletop in order, virtual tabletop, get your resources, your maps, your module, pictures and alternative media and stuff like that. Find either an organization or a means of advertising your game. And remember that even though people are paying for the game to play at the game, you're still the game master. And I've seen this before where people, especially, it's their first paid game. And at Polyhedra, we have our team chat where we can, share advice or someone will bring a problem to the collective and we try and figure out a way to help them with it. And a lot of people are struggling to, say no to a paid player, for example. It's okay to say no to a paid player. They're not paying you to do whatever they want. They're paying you to run a game of D&D, and that sometimes means saying no. That sometimes means, you got to let the dice fall where they may. So treat it like a game of D&D, but treat it like a job. Be punctual, deliver on what you promise. Don't promise what you can't deliver, and allow yourself a bit of grace to not get it perfect on the first try. Right? Like I've been running games for, a decade and a half. I've been running paid games for 4 years now. And there will be there'll be nights when I finish a session and I'm like, man, I could have done so many things that I could have done better or that didn't go the way I was hoping. And half the time I'm going to get a message from one of my players like, that was awesome. And you realize you don't maybe have the best grasp of what constitutes a perfect session, or maybe what's a perfect session to you is not one-to-one with what's a perfect session for your group or for your players. So give yourself some grace, but take it seriously, and hone your craft. right? You're developing a skill set. It's a trade in many ways, or you could think of it like performance art. There's a lot of ways to take it, but all these people who are professional musicians or performers or tradespeople, they take their craft seriously and they work to improve it. And that's the way I think about it too. I always want my next session to be better than my last one.
Very good. Very well said. All right. Coming into this next segment, here's what I would like to ask. What sets a paid game apart from like a game at home? For people who've maybe never run a paid game, what is the biggest difference to expect that they may not know to expect?
So I'll start with the player perspective, because I think a lot of, if you're doing it right, it's kind of behind the curtain. And so from a player perspective, you have people that take the game seriously, right? Like I can count on like my thumb the number of problem players that I've encountered as a paid game master. A large part of that, like I said, is we do interviews when people are joining the community. So we kind of try to get ahead of anything like that. But when people are paying $20, $25, $30 for the session, they take it seriously. They bring a competence, and the players almost are treated like a professional thing too, Mm-hmm. And there's a respect. People understand I'm not the only person paying for this either. So it fosters a certain dynamic at the table between the players and the game master, where everyone is sort of implicit agreement that we're all taking this $30 seriously, right? You're much less likely to miss sessions because you're paying for it, right? So for a long time I've been suffering migraines, and hopefully my recent glasses prescription that I've got will help me address that. But I aside from calling out when I have those migraines coming on, I don't like to miss sessions. Sometimes in the Montreal winter, power goes out too, but players give you a heads up, a couple of weeks in advance. They want to make sure that they're not charged for that session. They want to make sure that the communication is good on that front. So the players tend to take it a little bit more seriously, and the commitment, the regularity is there. It's a lot more dependable. I mean, I've read some horror stories, and I've talked to people who, this game we play once a month. We're supposed to play every week, but so and so has this, or so and so is a flake, or whatever. So you get a lot less of that when people are paying. From a game master perspective, I mean, I've been doing this for a while now, and the main difference for me is that, I run my home games now like a paid game. I don't really know how to go back, but I do my best to focus on the players on the characters when it comes to my prep. But I also think it's important that the world feels fleshed out, because you can't really predict what the players are going to do. So I'll give you an example. One of the modules that I've run is Call of the Netherdeep. So that's the Critical Role module that was published. It's a great adventure. I would recommend it to anybody. It's maybe a little less friendly to someone who's like a new game master. It does require like a little bit of massaging, and you'll certainly have to tailor it to your players. But I've been preparing a city that's in the module, and I've gone through like every possible location and prepped a background scene. 3/4 of them have a battle map. Like, that's not necessarily the standard that you should work with, but if I'm going to run a module more than once, right, like that prep comes back and it comes back again, and it remains useful. So for a paid game, you want to be judicious with your time, and you really have to. The game master sets the energy level for the table. Like, if you show up and you're like, "Hey guys, like, all right, let's do this," that's not getting off on a great foot. Versus like if you turn on your camera and you're like, all right, welcome back. I wrote a little rhyme, and I'm going to do the rhyme, and then we're going to do our player recaps, and you get an inspiration, and oh, look at that cat that you've got on your cat. You foster that good dynamic at the table. It's kind of like gardening, and you never know what kind of flowers are going to pop up and what might grow there. But you need to tend the table dynamic, because, as you know, a lot of these people are strangers until they start playing together, and you need to provide the glue that allows the table to become more than the sum of its parts. There's also like the polish, right? Like, I spend way more time than I should or need to making sure that, like, every ability on the monster stat block has the appropriate sort of thematic icon, that every ability has an automation, an animation, and this is not necessarily something that you need to do, but as you get better with your chosen tabletop or your chosen software, and I can't recommend Foundry highly enough on that front. The community is great. Most of the stuff you're ever going to need is free, or like a one-time purchase if it's a Patreon. And as you get more proficient, you can streamline your workflow and figure out what's important, what really is worth spending your time on, and then invest your time in that, because the players are going to want to come back to the table, right? It's your livelihood. So you need to sell your games. You need to sell your brand. That was the advice that David, who's the founder of Polyhedra, gave to me when I first started, is establish a brand. What is it that makes my table, what characterizes my table, what makes it different from another game master's table? You can't please everybody, but if you put out a certain flavor of game, the people who like that will find their way there. Running one shots as a sample of your work, right? Like people handing out little bites in Costco, right? Like, you eat enough of those sausage rolls, you're going to buy the box. That was a big one for me. And again, shout out to David for the great advice. I really wanted to start off by running like homebrew games, but nobody knew who Tom was when I first started. Nobody had any reason to put any faith in my creative abilities, but he said, the Critical Role module is coming out. There's a fan base for that. So I decided to run that because I knew it would be popular. And sure enough, my first table, my Tuesday table, my OG paid table, it's now that the game is wrapped. But almost all those players I still play with in one table or another. And like I mentioned, my Wednesday crew transplanted itself entirely to Monday and then added in a couple more players. So my Thursday game, we're level 19. We're playing tonight, actually. We're near the finale of this adventure, but we've been playing for over 3 years together. 3 years, these people have been coming every Thursday night to play and pay to play. And I think that's because I found a good fit and then I cultivated it. And my tables are different flavors. Monday is not like Thursday, Tuesday and Wednesday, very different. Even the Monday and the Wednesday game, which has a lot of overlap in players, have very different feels. So learn what your players like, learn what people are wanting to play. And I see this a lot, especially with other game masters, some people that are maybe just kind of breaking into it. They really have this adventure they want to run or the system they want to run, but you have to ask yourself, is there a market for that? Because you are trying to make a living after all, and you need to lean into or go where people are willing to pay. So it might not be your first choice, but run something that is going to appeal to a crowd. And now I'm running multiple homebrew campaigns, but only because I kind of proved my brand. So just patience, slow roll it, right? There's always next week.
Very awesome. Heck yeah. Excellent. All right. So that concludes all my questions. As we bring it to a conclusion and wrap it up, DM Tom, do you have any final pieces of advice, any one-liners or very crucial bits to share as we wrap it up for the possible aspiring paid game master?
Dear aspiring game master, you can do it. It may not work the way you think or the way you would like right away, but if your passion is there, the rest will fall into place. You just need a little bit of patience, and you need to accept the with a little bit of give yourself some grace, because that perfect session is an illusion. Give yourself some grace, be patient, and if you are passionate and truly love the game, the stories you're telling, the table you're running, then it's going to work. It just takes some time. And I mean, I'll be honest, you're not going to get rich doing it, but you can make a living doing it. And if I often hear it said, don't monetize your hobbies. And I think in principle, this is sound advice, but I don't think it's absolutely good advice. I think if you find a way to balance the passion and the professionalism, that's where you're going to find success. So you can do it. You can totally do it. I can do it. Anybody can do it.
Awesome. All right. Well said. Thank you very much for that, DM Tom. Tom, do you have any links in the description that you would like to call the viewers' attention to?
Yes, I would. I would love to just take a moment here to plug polyhedra.games. That is where you can go and check out the games that we're offering at Polyhedra, see all of my amazing colleagues. I would never lay claim to being the best game master at Polyhedra. I could think of a half a dozen people that would wear that, whose head would fit that crown much better. But there's plenty of them, people running all sorts of different systems. And even if you are a little wary of paying for a game, you can apply for a membership, come by the server, see what we're about, meet the community, play in some of the community one shots, and I'm sure you'll find a game that fits you there. And if you're an aspiring game master, we're looking for you too, right? That's the place to go. No shade to our competitors, but Polyhedra's the best. So come check us out. And I do have 2 seats open at my Wednesday table. So if you feel like getting into some shenanigans, that's the table to go to.
Awesome. Heck yeah. And can they find you through Polyhedra? Is that the best way to find you?
Yep, exactly. So polyhedra.games. And from there, I mean, we just got this brand new website. Our web developer, Robin, is incredible and doing a great job. You can browse the different game masters, the different campaigns. You can learn a little bit about the community itself and apply for a membership. Once you get through the vetting process, which is just a couple of interviews to make sure you're a good fit, and then there's the Discord, and that's where things kind of really happen. Come check us out. Everybody's welcome.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, DM Tom. It's been a fantastic interview. Empowering game masters to run better games is the goal here at GM Philosophy. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for watching. And we will catch you on the next one.
Thank you so much.